I learned a long time ago, if you want to accomplish anything of meaning or significance, it's never easy. It's just the way life, it's the way God made it. You want to do something that matters, it's going to take work, it's going to take effort, it's going to take sacrifice. That's just the way the world works. So let me thank you for being engaged in the struggle you are in to make a difference for people. My background is actually, before I got crazy and got in politics, my background is a sport of wrestling. I was assistant wrestling coach at Ohio State University. And I had a coach in high school. I mean, you think about people who impacted your life. Next to your mom and dad, it was probably a coach or teacher you had along the way. And for me, one of the next to my dad, probably the guy who had the biggest impact in my life was my high school wrestling coach. And he was the most difficult teacher in our school, and I would argue probably the most demanding wrestling coach in the whole state of Ohio. He taught chemistry and physics at our high school. And this is no exaggeration. He talked about discipline every single day. I mean, in class, he said, "Hey, Jordan, this is not any old class. This is chemistry. It's not, you want to do well in my class? You're going to have to be disciplined about preparing the night before, reading the material, coming to class, participating. It's going to take discipline to do well in this class." And then in the wrestling room, oh my goodness. I can still hear this guy, a wonderful Christian man, passed away a few years ago of cancer. Our wrestling room at our high school is named after Coach McCunn. My brother's the coach at our high school. We got this great tradition in our school. We've won the state tournament the last 12 years in a row. Coach McCunn in wrestling, self-discipline is the most important character quality necessary to accomplish anything of meaning or significance. Like, would that guy shut up? He's driving me crazy. He sounds like my dad. I get it from my dad every day. Now I get it from my coach. But he had a great definition. It hangs in our wrestling room today. It says, discipline's doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. And basically that meant doing things Coach's way when you'd rather do them your way. It meant doing things the right way when you'd rather do them the convenient way. And the problem right now, particularly when, I would say in this town, is we always look for the convenient way to do things instead of the right way and the disciplined way. And that's got to change. I mean, it's always easy just to throw money at a problem and say, let's just keep doing the same old, same old. But when you got to actually figure out how to make things better, that's when it gets tough. And I want to commend you. I know you guys have a commitment to school choice, and I just want to share one story. This happened in our state when I first, like I said, I was Joe Bag of Donuts wrestling coach, never intended to get involved in politics, and ran for state representative in 1994. No one gave us a chance to win. We had a lot of good folks help us out, and we were able to win. And one of the first things we got passed in our state legislature back in the mid-1990s was a school choice initiative in Cleveland, Ohio. And I learned a lot of great lessons when we pushed and got this through. The first one I learned is, we deal with lobbyists all the time, but you learn quickly that no high-paid lobbyist will ever beat a mom on a mission. There are some moms who care about their kids. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm sure you've seen that story. It's amazing. And we had to, now think about this. The statement that was made with the Cleveland Scholarship Program went all the way to the Supreme Court, challenged on the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment, held up, and has been functioning every year since 1995. What we did in that year is we passed a scholarship program. At the time, Cleveland Public Schools was spending about $6,000 per student, had a graduation rate of 32%. We said we're going to take 2,000 students, K through second grade, and we're going to give them a scholarship worth $2,150. So they had $6,000 spent on them. We're going to give them a scholarship worth $2,150 on the initial sign-up day. And this is powerful. The initial sign-up day for those 2,000 spots, 7,000 moms on a mission to help their kid get a better education. We're kicking and scratching and fighting to get one of those scholarships. And think of the statement they were saying. You can keep the money. Give me the freedom. You can keep the money. Give me the ability to get my kid in a school where they're going to have a chance to get an education that's going to put them on a path to achieve the American dream. And that is, to me, that is, when you think about our urban areas and what's happening, this is one of the central issues. And you guys are involved in this. And I want to thank you for it. And it is working. God bless the Catholic schools in Cleveland, because they're taking most of the students. They really are. And it's one of those things where you saw, and I tell you what, every time it was challenged in one of the lower level courts and working its way through, every time it was challenged, and we had to reauthorize it in the General Assembly each 2 years, the best advocates we had were those moms on a mission. We would bring moms down to the State House, and they would stand up there, and they would talk about their son or their daughter. And no, like I say, no high-paid lobbyist making 6 figures, 7 will ever beat a mom with passion in their heart talking about their kids. It was powerful, and and we got to expand this. This is one of the best things we can do to help families in our urban areas. I'll just finish with this, and then, like I said, I'll take a few questions. My favorite scripture verse is 2 Timothy 4:7, and it's where Paul's in prison and he's writing. It's almost like Big Brother writing to Little Brother. And he's given advice and wisdom after the long ordeal that Paul's been through and as a missionary and the work he's been doing. But he says, "I fought the good fight, I've finished the course, I've kept the faith." And I like that verse, mostly because of the action in it. I would argue it's a verse about America. We have all, this is one thing we know about Americans. Americans are not shy and timid folk. We are people of action. And whatever the challenge, whatever the obstacle, whatever the hurdle, we figure out a way to get over it, around it, through it. We figure out a way to prevail. And that's what Paul, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. And if we fight, finish, and keep, good things are going to happen all across this country. And I would argue we're at one of those critical moments where we need that verse and that attitude applied in America more than ever. And so I'll finish there, and like I said, your chance to yell at another congressman and ask any questions you like. I got a few minutes. Yeah. Oh, RSC. Yeah, this is I get the privilege of chairing this. It's be honest, it's just a group of conservatives. We're the conservative House Republicans. Our job is to push. Our job is to push our leadership to do what we believe is conservative things, both economically and cultural. Values issues. We're as concerned about the sanctity of life and the protection of the key institution in our culture, the family. I always remind folks, the first institution the good Lord put together wasn't the church, it wasn't the state, it was the family. And so we have to be as focused on that as we are on economic policy, tax policy, defense policy, and all the other things. So we got 165 members of the 241 Republican members in the House, largest caucus on Capitol Hill, and our job is to be conservative pushers. So that's what we do. Republican Study Committee. All right, your chance to yell. If not, I'll get out of your hair and we can keep moving. Anything? Yeah.
What is the makeup of the two bodies right now? In the event that Obama should be reelected, what do we have in place to stem the tide?
Well, the House, I think the House is still going to stay on the Republican side. We got a 241, 218, 435 members, 218 is the majority. We got 241 Republicans right now. So it looks good, like we'll be able to maintain the House, the Senate, 50-50, much like the race for the White House, 50-50.
Yeah.
I do believe that I'm optimistic. I live in the state. We live in the state that's probably the most important. I've been all over our state the last several weeks telling everyone, we get this amazing privilege and responsibility as residents of Ohio to decide who the next president of the United States is going to be. Because you know the history of our country. No Republicans ever got to the White House without winning Ohio, and it's just a critical battleground. It's a composite of the country. It's 11 million people, 7th largest state. We got Appalachia, we got African American, Hispanic American, we got agriculture, we got industry, we got union housing, we got the whole mix. And so it's a composite of America, and that's why it's such a 50-50 state. And right now it's even. It's just really even. But if Romney wins Ohio, he'll be president. If he wins Ohio, Josh Mandel will beat Sherrod Brown. And you can start to see the snowball move in a direction I think it needs to for us to solve the big problems we face. And here's what's at stake. And I don't know if you follow the convention, but I thought Condoleezza Rice gave probably the most broad context speech that really, I think, captured what's at stake. Polly and I, my wife and I, had the privilege of traveling to Israel last November. And we happened to be there that first week in November, the week that the IAEA announced Iran was very close to nuclear capability. And so it's always a fascinating week to be in, fascinating anytime to be in Israel, but this was a particularly interesting week. In fact, the day the announcement came out was the day that we sat down with, 6 of us members sat down with the Prime Minister. And one of the things that came through loud and clear, didn't matter who you were talking to, public sector, people in the government, or people in the private sector in Israel, they all said one thing. It said, the best way, the absolute best way your country can help our country, the best way America can help Israel, is for America to stay strong. If you're stronger, we're better. You're stronger, we're safer. And here's the bottom line. The world's a scary place. Watch the news any hour of the day. It's a scary, dangerous world out there, but it's a less scary, less dangerous, better world when we lead with our values, our history, our heritage. And the simple truth is, you cannot lead diplomatically if you first don't lead militarily, and you cannot lead militarily if you don't lead economically, and you can't lead economically if you have the wrong kind of values and the wrong kind of things happening in your culture. And so all that's in play. And we have got to make sure we have the right policies in place that help us lead economically, but also that honor those values and traditions and principles that made us great in the first place. And so that's at stake in this election. Yeah.
Yes, when it comes to traditional values, as far as family is concerned, Though it seems so elementary, it seems like why are people so opposed to that? These political leaders here in Washington, those that are opposed to traditional family values, are they really opposed, or are they just being political? I mean, because it seems so elementary when it comes to just basic traditional family values.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think there are some who generally have this animosity towards a Christian perspective, and don't appreciate that. In fact, fight against it. And then there are those who think, well, you know, what's the culture telling me? What are their concerns out there, and where do I need to be politically? You know, the old stick your finger in the wind, figure out which way the wind's blowing. So I think it's both. But I do think there is, and you see it all the time, just this negative animosity towards people of Christian faith. I mean, sad, because we just had a tour last night by David Barton in the Capitol talking about the Judeo-Christian heritage of this country, and from the founders through Lincoln, through Garfield, a president from our state who preached and was a pastor. I mean, it's amazing the link there, and yet there are those who want to dismiss all that and actively oppose it. Yeah, here and here.
On that page there, how do we flip now when we start talking about Governor Romney being a Mormon? And we talk about it way back over here. You know, we chop it up and say, I can't support him here, but I want to.
Well, I mean, I look at his overall, his commitment to sanctity of life, his commitment to family, commitment to traditional marriage, and you look at those positions. But I would say this too: what you're all doing, and what pastors in the church do every Sunday, and communities do every hour of every day, that's a lot more important than what we congressmen are trying to do. I mean, it's truly, I think, much more about an awakening and a revival in the country than it is about policies from a bunch of politicians in Washington, D.C. Last one, and I'll get out of here.
The 2000, it says here in your intro that you introduced the only balanced budget alternative to President Obama's budget in 2009. Could you just kind of expound on
Yeah, our budget, we actually get a budget that arrives at balance in 5 years. I won't go too long here, but let me just give you a couple numbers. Last week we went over $16 trillion in national debt.
Yeah.
So our annual economy is about $15.5 trillion. Anytime your debt is bigger than your economy, your debt's bigger than your gross domestic product, that is a very bad place to be. We're at 104% debt to GDP ratio now. Greece was at 130%. So we're now, the greatest country in history is now in a similar position, fiscally speaking, to the countries in Europe who are having all kinds of problems. Think about this number. We're going to spend over $200 billion this year in interest on that debt. And what's interest rates like right now? Anyone tell me what interest rates are like? Yeah, low as they've ever been, historically low. They're going to go up at some point. If they increase modestly, within 10 years, we're spending more in interest than we currently spend on national defense, which basically means you just can't sustain that. And how do you remain the greatest country in the world when you're spending more to service debt than you are to defend yourself? So that's where we're headed, and this has to change. So we said we got to show a path to get to balance in 5 years. Now, for all the abuse Paul Ryan takes, and I'm so glad he's on the ticket, for his budget that we supported last year, his budget doesn't balance for 26 years. And yet, oh, that's draconian, radical. 26 years. How many families get to balance their budget in 26 years? You know, so we said, let's show it how we get there in 5. Now, what we do is similar to what Paul did. In order to save Medicare and to save Medicaid, you have to change them. So people who stand up here and tell you don't have to change them are just wrong. That it's going to have to change to save it. And it's like any problem. Sooner you start, easier it is to solve. Sooner you get about fixing it, easier it is, and less radical and drastic things you have to do. Longer you wait, more drastic it gets. So we say with Medicare, for example, we're going to say for people who are currently receiving benefits or close to receiving benefits, close to retirement age, system stays the same. But if you're younger, we have to change it or it goes broke. And the Democrats are going to change it too. The question is, which way do you change it? Do you put bureaucrats in Washington in charge, and they ration care and decide what providers get paid and all this, 15 members of the Independent Payment Advisory Board that's in the Obamacare legislation? Or do you do it through choice and competition? I mean, I would argue choice and competition is a model more consistent with American principles. And so that's what we advocate, and then we cut discretionary spending, we do some other things, but largely it's through how we change the way Medicare and Medicaid are delivered. Medicaid, we give it back to the states. And that, I'll let you all in a little secret. We're going to have to cut some spending, right? When you're spending $1 trillion more each year than you're taking in, you're going to have to cut spending. I'll finish with this. Any of you ever seen the movie 1776, the musical? It's a great show. It's about the Declaration, when we decide as a country we're going to be America. And of course, the driving force that takes place in Independence Hall when the Congress is putting together the Declaration. Adams is the driving force behind it. The scene that I always remember is Jefferson has written the Declaration. And they're in Independence Hall and they're debating it and they're marking it up and amending it and correcting it. And they're going through, and it's driving Adams nuts because he's impatient. He wants to get to the vote and he wants to declare independence and start this experiment in freedom we call America. So they're going through it and one member stands up and says, well, our beef is more with the king, not so much with Parliament. We might want to change this paragraph and amend this a little bit. Someone else stands up, yeah, and he says, and even though our beef is with the king, we might not want to use that strong a language. We might want to tone it down a little bit. Finally, a third member stands up, and Adams is like, come on. And third member stands up and says, and we got to be concerned about deep-sea fishing rights off the coast of New England, so we might want to. And finally, Adams stands up and says, it's a revolution, dang it. We're going to have to offend somebody. And so the point is, we're going to have to cut spending, or at least slow the rate of growth, or we will mortgage the future so bad for our kids and there won't be this great thing we call America. And that's what we've really focused on at the Republican Study Committee. Last one. I said that twice, I mean it this time.
The last figure I heard was that we give $1 million a day on parenthood. Why is that not a figure?
We fought it last year. Look, this is where I got sideways with our leadership on a couple things last year. We opposed it. I was for having the fight a year ago, April, on the very first continuing resolution, the first kind of funding the government bill we did. I also got in a big fight with our leadership on the debt ceiling agreement that was put together last summer, which I thought was terrible. We actually were the ones who put together the cut, cap, and balance plan from our office that the American people liked and which actually solved the problem. So I agree with you. I wish we would have fought more. Now we're at a point where let's have the election and see where we're going to go from there. But I wish we would have fought more last year. God bless you. Thank you all very much.